Hello, this is a video response to the gentleman who had a list of questions about secession. In answer to your first question, which I believe was, why do you really want to secede from the Union? The answer to that question is that a clear majority of the Yankees and an overwhelming majority of the blacks, a decisive majority of the Hispanics voted for Obama, but the overwhelming majority of white Southerners voted against him twice. So that makes him the president of the Yankee Nation, or as I call it, your Yankee country. Number two, how is the decision for secession to be made? That's an obvious one. The state legislature of, say, Alabama would call a sovereign constitutional convention, and that convention would repeal the ordinance by which Alabama rejoined the Union in the late 1860s. 3. Will the liberals in states like Texas be allowed to leave? Will conservatives in states like New York be allowed to join the Nation of the Red States, or the CSA 2.0, or the Republic of Dixie? Of course. You know, we're peaceful people. We can have a velvet divorce like Czechoslovakia. 4. What happens to sports teams in the CSA, and or what happens to sports teams in the new Red State Nation? And the answer to that is that, well, we've had plenty of examples of nation states in Europe breaking apart, and of course, you know, they still play soccer in Croatia and Slovenia and Serbia. So, I mean, you would have one national team splitting into a couple teams like you have in the Balkans. So that answers that question. What happens to musicians touring the newly divided union? And musicians have no problem going on tours worldwide. They tour how many countries in Europe, how many countries in Asia? That's not a big deal at all. Musicians could cross borders easily. There's nothing stopping a musician in the United States from going on tour in Mexico or Canada or Japan or Britain. I mean, that's not an issue. Who owns the military equipment in the United States from the newly dissolved Union? That's a very interesting question, and I believe that's going to be a real major issue. And I would say that the people of the states as a whole own that equipment, and surely we could agree to some kind of split in with regards to that, some kind of apportionment. We'll assume like part of it, you can have some of it. Nuclear missile silos. Where are the nuclear missile silos? Honestly, I don't know of any that are in the South. I believe they're mostly in the far western states like Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota. I don't know of any nuclear missile silos in the South. Okay, soldiers in Afghanistan, will they still be a part of the U.S. Army? If your state secedes from the Union, that means you're no longer a citizen of the United States. But if you still want to fight in these useless foreign wars, I mean, if you're in Alabama and you want to go shoot people in Afghanistan because New York was attacked, you can move to New York, I guess, and fight for them. Happy trails. Civil War. Who would if there was a civil war, would other nations, would the UN intervene? The UN doesn't have any ability to project power overseas by itself. The European countries are not going to intervene in the United States to prevent secession. Although you would have to think that the Chinese and the Russians would be totally for Southern secession, considering how all the oil, or most of the oil and refining capacity, is around here in the Gulf Coast. And will the new your last question was, will the new country, the newly dissolved, the red states, or the CSA 2 as I call it, will they protect the rights of the people in the states that are seceding? And I would just say that no individual can predict the future or can answer that question. It would obviously be up to the new national government or the individual states that are seceding. It would be up for each state to decide what to do in that area. And I hope that answers your questions. I'm more than willing to take any more questions on the secession petitions. Thank you.